Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome back Mike Russum, who last spoke here a few years ago. He was also an external examiner here. I'd say one of our better external examiners, or best, because he actually looked at the work, looked at the drawings. And the drawings, I think, as you well, I don't know we're going to show, but I hope you will see some of the drawings this evening. Mike does in his practice, first Portchmouth Russum. The drawings are very, very important, and they're very beautiful things in themselves. And also, what's nice is that Mike is now starting to build these projects, and some very interesting projects, housing projects that he's going to show you this evening. There is an awful lot of dull architecture in this country, particularly in this country, I think. Mike is not making it, and quite rare in that way. People get awarded Sterling prizes for things that seem less than interesting to me. I'm sure they're beautifully detailed, and Alan Stanton's a very nice guy, like John Prouvé and all the rest of it, but that seems kind of a dull building to win a prize. But anyway, Mike is going to show you some projects which they're both beautifully drawn, they're very interestingly conceived, and they are very they're odd and unusual projects. And thanks very much for coming to I mean that in a good way.
Yeah. No, so it's great to be here. Wonderful school, and one of my partners who is truly brilliant, well the other is as well, but Andrew Bird's studied here, and you should check his project out for Sinclair, which won the Sinclair Prize. Sorry. Ooh. Well, can you hear me all right, or do you want this thing?
No.
Oh, I see. Right, sorry. Oh, sorry. Hello? Is that sound all right? No, it's a wonderful school, and as I say, one of my partners, Andrew Bird, was a student here and did a wonderful project, and we've always got a strong warmth for this school. Will is been a very keen supporter and help to us, and so we're delighted to be here. Will has referred to our drawings. I'm not going to be showing a whole lot of drawings, and I'm going to be a little bit probably overly boring, because I'll be talking about perhaps construction matters and maybe touching on servicing matters. Homes, concepts to fruition. And so I'm going to show some projects which I have shown here before a long time ago, but they kind of have a bearing on what we've done now, and I'll leave you to draw your conclusions as to whether it's a very useful development or not. How do I turn these things on? Okay, right, there we go. Okay, so these are two projects that we did in 1994, and the pacemaker and the concept house, and we were involved in an initiative by the Architecture Foundation at that time, and it was an exhibition of young British architects, and we were given the task of designing a home within a gap in a terrace of housing, or a home on a greenfield site. And we didn't really think they were very relevant to our experience anyway. We certainly haven't had commissions of that nature, although I go on to show one which is perhaps of that nature. So we thought about what we thought would be an interesting thing to do, and we thought, well, with motor cars, you can get a motor car of kind of quite exceptional quality for £5,000, and you can buy it more or less off the shelf. And if you want to spend £5,000 on a bit of building work, you tend to get some rubbish toshed out by some builders, and there are reasons for that. Not only do they tend to not be very skilled, they're working in difficult conditions. Can we make something that would benefit the housing market that could be made in a high-quality way and offer good economic value. And so what we designed was the pacemaker, the clip-on heart for your home. And this is a fiberglass structure, and it's planned to have the complicated servicing elements of a house contained within it. So here you see the ground floor level, but it's under the title Hot and Cold. And essentially we're having a fireplace. We believe that to be a kind of important thing in the evocation of home. And so the fireplace is at the core of it with the heating elements for cooking. And then as you get the colder elements, the food store, an old-fashioned larder, if you like, that is on the periphery. And that this structure would be a fiberglass diaphragm structure made of ribs so that it has lightness but strength. And what you're not seeing here is that's the loo, and this is the staircase, and that's the entrance. And so it has this form that derives a large area on its roof, which we can use for solar collection to preheat the domestic water supply. I mean, this sort of discussion is in common parlance now. And here we're saying that this fiberglass element, whilst it's light, it's easy to transport there, but we can actually pour concrete into the wall diaphragms so that it begins to have mass. And you're not seeing it here, and I really shouldn't be talking in great length about this project, but the idea is that there are a series of ducts within this so that air can flow around it, such that if you build living accommodation next to it, the air can pass through here so that at night time, in fact, at night time you close it off so you've got warm air contained within it. In winter and in summer, you can open these up and then you can draw air through to cool the mass of this at night. And what this image shows is the relationship between the pacemaker, the clip-on heart, and this a lightweight structure adjacent to it, which would have all of the living accommodation. And that might be a panelized construction system. So there is the pacemaker. And this is the entry point here. This is the connection to the services. This is the kitchen element here. The second story there, which has got a bathroom within it, and the fireplace element at the back, and a satellite dish on the top. So here you see the pacemaker attached to a barn. You could buy a barn building and then throw this thing. It would stick on the side like a limpet, and in that way it means that you can enjoy the huge space within the barn without inhabiting it with kitchens and bathrooms and stuff like that, which begin to kind of you see it in all these barn conversions that the space inside gradually becomes normalized. And so of course mass production, we can make lots of these things, and here you see some terraced housing on the Yorkshire Dales. And of course we're not we wouldn't deny rich people their own idealized version next to a serene lake in the Lake District. And so here you see it ready to roll up to site. You see the pacemaker on top with the flat panels below. And we did a competition called Concept House, and we shamelessly re-employed the pacemaker but designed the flat pack system for the space for the house next to it. So there you see the front elevation, and here the somewhat idealized garden elevation. the next project that I'm showing you is a project we did for a Europan competition in Switzerland, and it's in a place called Biasca Poleggio, and it sits here at the very base of the Alps, and well, the confluence of these two valleys. And there's a railway was going to be built, a railway tunnel, I should say, was going to be built to speed up rail traffic from Germany to Italy. And it was boring through that mountain. And they were going to need a village to be created for 800 workers while this was being built, whilst it was being tunneled. And then the idea was that as the railway line would then move south towards Italy, that the workers would move with it, and the buildings themselves could move with it. So we were kind of intrigued by that as a project, and so we proposed a series of chalets, which would be a flat pack construction, but in a way this is the inverse of the pacemaker. Rather than saying the heart of this chalet building, which would house 20 workers, would be a prefabricated element, there we were thinking that it would be a stone element which would which would house the kitchen and the hearth to the communal area for the people living in that hut. And I suppose we kind of wanted something not transient for that, because in a way, I guess these guys are going to be they're going to be poorly paid, they're going to be coming from all over Europe, and so we wanted something that had a kind of solidity and warmth for these people. But then we thought that the chalet itself would be of prefabricated flat pack construction. And so here you see the stone chimney and entrance and kitchen element, and here the flat pack element that makes up the chalet. So here the decking, this is the communal room. Here we have two-story shower elements that are there are 4 showers in each of these elements, and they would be made and craned in. And here you see the floor plates and the wall slabs, and there all of the external wall panels, and then again the prefabricated roof.
Your clicker.
Oh, right.
You can just go forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It's radio control.
Thank you. And here you see it planned, obviously very, very small. This is the communal room, there's the little kitchen, and here the shower units and the bed spaces. And here a section where you see the shower element here, the prefabricated shower element, and there obviously the stone hearth for the chimney. Here the elevation. And this was our site plan. This is the railway, which is being connected to and enlarged. And these were the prescribed sites. And the idea was that you had to house for 200 workers, then 400 workers, then 600, and then 800. And this was an old empty convent here, and that would provide some of the facilities they required. And this would all be the residences. So the first 200 are contained here, the next 200 here, and then the next 200 like that, and finally the 800 dwellings. But we gathered them together in clusters so that there would be a communal space for all of the people staying there. This was another community building, that would be a dining hall. But these were kind of smaller community buildings which would have table tennis tables and billiard tables and so on. And so here you see a section through that communal space, and there in the communal space, the green, we call these little hamlets, where you can see they're playing boule, and the glorious Alps as a backdrop. So, needless to say, that didn't win the competition. And so now we're going to do, I should have put a timeline on this. We're going to do a leap forward in time to much more nearer the current day for a very slow-moving construction for a private house, in fact, for myself and my partner, in Highgate in London. We did wonder whether we should call it Sloth House, but we like Stealth House. And that, for a number of reasons that hopefully will become apparent. Oh, hang on. Actually, there's a point I want to make about this last project, which I can't pass on. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and that is there. There used to historically be a Roman encampment here, and part of the attraction with this scheme was that we have this community of dwellings, and the houses will then move on down the tracks to a further location where they'll carry on building this railway line. But we just like the idea that this would all move, but that these remain. And so you have the kind of residue of this little community, this little village, left by all of these stone towers, so that there's some kind of, to use the very popular word that the Conservative Party seemed to love, legacy. There was a legacy of this development. So I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but I suppose we kind of like the notion that some things can be very, very permanent and some things can be very transient. So back to Stealth House. Stealth House is located here, and it's importantly near the Woodman pub in Highgate, and it's in Wood Lane. And Wood Lane is an interesting street. It leads to Queen's Wood, and it has on its south side, which this is the south side, a whole series of very idiosyncratic buildings. The land not only slopes quite steeply down the hill to this wood, but it also slopes very steeply down in this direction. In fact, it slopes down to the tube, to one of the entrances to the tube station. So you've got a very interesting cross-section on the site. And we bought this little strip of land between these two buildings and proposed a house there. And because the land, as you see, this is the road here, and the land slopes away quite steeply, it gives us the opportunity to consider a house where we can put the living levels at high level, so that we're getting the advantage of the fantastic views, or being in the tree canopy. You get the views in winter. In summer, you're in the tree canopy, and that's quite extraordinary. As well as the sunlight. And bedrooms, of course, don't really need a whole lot of light, and nor do bathrooms, so those we suppress and we sink into the earth. And in looking at the plan form, south is down here, the sun is moving around like this, so here we thought of the merits of having a rounded end on the south side, so that as the sun passes around it, it allows light to come smoothly into the neighbours' houses. And on the road side, there are a series of bay windows here, and we make the argument that we're responding to the context by having this house expressed as a bay. One of the things on this design, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to go back, actually. Well, I'll just... Here, unfortunately, this is a truncated photo, but that is a parking space. We want a parking space as well, but this is insufficient for a car length. And so we've pushed back the facade of our building at that point here, and then we've decided to claw back the space we've lost by pushing out the living space above over the cars. In thinking about the materiality and form, I've said the lower levels are going to have the bedrooms. Bedrooms quite conveniently can have a rectangular form, because the largest object is about 2 meters by 2 meters, and they're pretty well nearly always square or rectangular. So for that reason, we've got a kind of very orthogonal form to the base. It sits comfortably with the neighbours. And in terms of materiality, it's been cut into the hillside, so we want a dense material that will retain the earth. So in this case, we're proposing engineering brick. But we're saying that the living area up above, this thing up above, is liberated from that it can take its own form. And we're also saying that for economic reasons, one understands why we make this out of brick here. We have to have something dense to hold back the earth. But above, while we're not holding back the earth, maybe we can then look at a prefabricated construction. And so we're proposing that the living area is built entirely off-site and brought in. And in that way, we're arguing that it will create less disturbance for the neighbours and a higher quality of construction. So I'll just whiz you through the plans quickly. This is the entrance level. You come up a ramp here, and that's the entrance hall. This is drawn here as a bedroom, but in fact it's a kind of office area. And here, views out. This is going down the stairs from the entrance hall, and there's a guest bedroom there and a principal bedroom here, which has access onto the garden. And then this is the living area above, with these two kind of apsoidal ends to them, with a small breakfast area there, a kitchen here, and a dining area here, and a sitting area, telly-watching area here, and a little balcony here. And then you go up those stairs there, and you arrive here, where there's a gallery overlooking this double-height space, and there an external terrace, and that's located there because it gets the setting sun. South is down here, so the sun is setting over here, and this gets sunlight, from about 3 o'clock. And then here you go up a ramp here to a kind of, I'm calling it an elevated conservatory. It will be a conservatory in the sky, really, which will have planters and seating there. And obviously, the house is really seen as a kind of promenade through a series of spaces, and that is the kind of conclusion to this promenade through the house. So here the section reinforcing it with the bedrooms, the living level, the entrance level with the office there, and there the living area with that kind of elevated conservatory above. And here an image early on of the living level, and here coming up the stairs to that semicircular terrace. And at this point here, we've compressed, because you're kind of watching telly there, we don't necessarily want it to be flooded with light, so we've closed off this just to have a pair of glass doors which lead onto a balcony that projects. Whereas on top, it's surrounded by glass so that you're in the canopy of the trees and you get the view. So here you see a computer model of it. This wall is cut at an angle here, like this, so that you're getting more of the space available to the sunshine. Here a view of the back. And there you see it subtly inserted into this context. Now, in terms of making this upper element, we kind of made the commitment that it should be prefabricated, and the model, so the model of this was the Airstream caravan. That is, of course, a model of an Airstream caravan. That's not, I didn't really mean that pun, but anyway, the Airstream caravan, which is which they were kind of made. I don't know who designed them, but they were made in America after the Second World War because there was a huge surplus of aluminium from making aeroplanes in the war. And so that was what kind of contributed to the creation of the Airstream caravan and, of course, the mobility for people in America. And so there you see it beginning to affect the design of the upper element. In fact, by spraying this model silver there, that I think was the final death knell with the planning officers who haven't been very supportive of this project. So I'm now just going to whiz through quickly because it's pretty rudimentary stuff, but this is a technical course, so I have tried to, or this is technical aspect of this course, so I've tried to put a few nuts and bolts in. This is the lower element, the masonry element. And there you see us digging the hole in the ground, and a rough cast slab there, and then sand on top of that, and then here I think it's 6 inches of insulation to isolate the building from the cold earth. There we are, pouring the slab, and then building up the engineering brick off the slab. And we're using engineering brick because it has, these are incredibly strong bricks, they're incredibly moisture proof, that's why you see them on a lot of the railway bridges. And we're doing cavity construction, and here, where it's below ground, we infill that cavity with cement, so it becomes a rigid wall. And above, when it's above ground level, then we put insulation in that space. When it's below ground, we put the insulation outside, but of course it's covered by the earth. So this was all the propping for the first floor slab, or the entry-level slab. There, a bit of shuttering on the side. There you see the insulation between the inner course and the outer course. And as soon as it goes to as soon as it's above ground, we can then switch to this lightweight concrete block. So there you see it emerging. There you see the client in one of her happier moments. I don't know, you probably see her scowling a bit later on. This is the entry hall slab, and this is where the stair will go down. And these are sketches of steel trestles. That's the entry hall slab here, and there's steel trestles on top of that are going to support the element, the living element that's going to arrive above, and it also braces the walls so that they're kind of stabilized in this fashion. And this is making them, and this is installing them. And that's on the garden side. So there you go, we're ready for the top element. And what I did was in a pub, I went to the pub and I was having a pint and I was introduced to a guy, and now I'm embarrassed because I've forgotten his name. Tony, it will come back to me. He's an amazing guy. And he is a product designer, but he was a product designer for people like Norm Foster about 30 years ago. And I said, "Ooh, would you be interested in making this top bit?" And he said, "Ooh, I might have in my youth. I'm not sure. I'm going to come and have a look. Show me the model." And so I showed him my model, which is not this one here, by the way. And he said, "Well, if you're making 200 of these, I could see why you might make it in aluminium, that you might set up all the tooling, but you're only making one of them. So in that case, why don't you just make the one of them?" And he said, "You've made this model, and you've made this model by making ribs and then bending over bits of plastic. why don't you do that with this? And he said, why don't you make it out of timber? And then you can epoxy cover the timber and it will be waterproof. So we then thought, well, that was very, very clever and very, very helpful. And so we've looked at how we might break the top element into components that could be made out of timber. And just to reinforce that, here's a picture of, say, a boat. And you see, you know, these ribs and then the timber laid upon it. Much more exciting for people like me is this image of the Mosquito bomber, or aeroplane, I should say. It was a multi-purpose aeroplane in the war, helped defeat the Germans. And this aeroplane was made out of wood, entirely out of wood. And so there you see an image of its fuselage, the interior of the fuselage, where you see these timber ribs and then plywood bent over those ribs. And that is really the concept for the construction for our upper element. And this is a drawing by the people who we got to make it. They're called Cowley Timber Works, and they do absolutely extraordinary work with timber. And here are their drawings of how it might all be panelised. And essentially it's made around, in old money you have a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of timber, which in kind of metric is a 1200 by 2.4 metre sheet of timber. And so for economic reasons, each of these panels is broken into the sizes of a sheet of timber. And there are 4 ribs to each of those sheets. And all of the curves here are just 2-dimensional curves. I kind of go a bit berserk about the way people love Zaha Hadid, because she doesn't have to operate in any kind of real world at all. And her curves are very, very complex, and that is very expensive to make her projects. And so I think it's kind of more interesting to think about how you can still achieve extraordinary things, but do it with you know, with kind of intelligent economic approach. And so this is the first piece of work on this upper element. And what's happened is these are planks of wood that then have been finger jointed here. So you kind of see that. You see that on furniture and stuff where the timber's cut like that and joined and glued. So that's a glue joint there and a glue joint there. And unfortunately, I had all of my slides of the construction of this stolen, or rather I had my laptop stolen. They were all on this. So unfortunately, I don't have the best photos of any of this. But those planks that you saw there then were jointed then into what we called hockey sticks. So they had this kind of profile. And so there you're seeing a joint in the hockey stick there and a joint there. So those were flat bits that were then jointed. And then they were cut away by this CNC router. So this is all kind of digitally analysed and then cut by a kind of computerized drill system or cutting system. And because, even though I say it's a 2-dimensional curve, it has huge complexity, because when the walls are purely vertical and the plywood then is at a right angle to that, but as it goes over the barrel vault, the angle always changes if you're trying to get the plywood fixing directly onto the timber ribs. So they're kind of exceptionally clever people, and they've worked all this out. And so there you see the ribs that emerge from this, and there you see the plywood sheets which are being screwed onto that. And it's got some lanterns, and these are made out of wood as well. And what they've done here is use the same tool, the CNC cutting tool, to make bricks of timber. So that is one brick, and that is another brick. And they have holes in them, and they plant them onto dowels. So it's just like laying bricks. They cross over each other, but It's exactly the same brick, and they fix over dowels. There, another detail of the plywood being lapped over and screwed onto the ribs. Here you see one of the lanterns set inside. There you see one of the bay ends, and that will be the terrace up there. Here you see them being painted. And now we've moved back to Wood Lane, where, unfortunately I don't have the best photos of this, but a crane has arrived and it's dropping in one half of the floor plate. And then the walls are placed on top, and this is the garden side where it develops into this conservatory. There's the generic British worker looking hugely interested in proceedings. This is the little projecting balcony that pokes out. And so the little projecting balcony is down here, and then this is the upper level where we have this floating disc of wood. That's the kind of elevated conservatory. And this is the round lantern to the conservatory. This again has this same brick construction, wood brick construction. And then this is on the roadside, where you see the panels turning over to create the arch, and the quadrant panels coming in to create the bay window area. And this is the terrace deck. And now we move to the stage where, so having established that structure, then it gets glazed. And these some amazing, it's like the SAS have come to do the glazing. So having got glazed, this is a view of the interior. That's that circular disc of space here. And then this is looking back towards the street. All of this was prefabricated, all of this. These stairs came as a prefabricated element. It's all made up in Lincoln, in the north of England. And then that is the terrace. Another view of the, you can see there was a fair bit of water penetration before the glazing was complete. And now beginning to line it out. Although it kind of looked like quite an interesting structure with all the timber, we just thought it would be more interesting to insulate. We had to insulate, of course, between all the ribs, and then line it out with plaster. So here you're seeing it lined out. Those are apertures in which they're going to. It's bendy plasterboard, yeah. It's only like 5 mil thick, and so it has this funny sheen on it. It's a different colour. And originally we had a ramp going into the entrance, but then we changed it to a bridge. And so here you see the bridge coming in. So now I'm going to take you up relatively to the current day where it's at. It's not a completed building, but that is the footbridge approach, and the doors on the left there. And when you come in, that is that's where the wardrobe is. And this is where the letterbox is, so if I go... Yeah, so there you see the letterbox there, and it... And it discharges into here. You can see we also keep our nuclear waste there. So that's the wardrobe there, and then you get a door here which goes through to the office. And this is the office with a slate floor that will shortly carry on all the way out to the end of the terrace. And then this is the stair down to the bedroom level. And there you're seeing the guest bedroom. So you can see this is the ground outside, it's at a higher level. Suzuki Van. And this was a change. We decided that the guest bedroom should have its own ensuite bathroom, so we've put an absolutely minuscule shower room into the space beneath the stair. And it's all very, very small, so that's why it has a sliding door there. And in fact, you can see the headroom is very tight because we cut out into the staircase there to even achieve a decent head height over the basin area. And then this is the master bedroom with the lady of the house on the bed, enjoying the garden. And so back to the entrance hall. This is going up the stairs. And here we have the stairs that ascend into the top. And they, again, these are a prefabricated thing. This was made in Lincoln. This is going to have a kind of rubber tread, probably teak tread in it there. And it's kind of been designed to give the illusion of having dropped out of the belly of the object above. And you go up the stairs. That's the microscopic loo. And here we come into the living level. I haven't deliberated long on any of the servicing, but it will have underfloor heating. And what we've got here is we've got little fin radiators here. And so air to supplement, because it's a double height space, it needs a bit more heating in it. So we put these panels in here and the air comes out, hot air comes out there. There you see the fridge hugging cat. There a view of the upper space. Here the kind of our lunar view. And this is the projecting balcony, which hasn't got its upper handrail on yet. And there the stairs up to the half-round terrace at the front of the building. And there's Max, who's cut all of this fiberglass decking that you see outside there. So that's flush with the interior, but it allows the water to go through it and outside. And here's the view from up the street. This is the footpath that goes down to the tube station. So there you're seeing the office with the living element above. Another view of that. And here a view of the front with the car in place. And we were delighted that this got that it's attracting very interesting headlines from the Daily Telegraph and the Daily Mail. We, of course, have used this as an opportunity to promote our practice. So I'm now going to talk about Downley House. And this is the last project, Downley House sits in a little dale in the South Downs, and it is actually quite beautiful. Although when we went there, the first day, Andrew and I went there, and we couldn't believe that anybody would want to live there. There are a number of little houses here, the chalet and the bungalow, and this used to be part of a very large estate. And that house was used as to occupy the engineer for a pump that pumped water from 275 feet below ground level up to a reservoir above the house. So the engineer lived there, and that was used to water the entire estate. It's all on chalk, which and so there's a natural aquifer beneath. And that was a plan about 60 years ago. And this was a photograph we took of the existing house when we arrived there. This was a competition that we got appended to. I think the RIBA the client had gone to the RIB and asked for a list of architects to do a private house, and so they all started designing a house. And then a friend of the client said, "Oh, you want to talk to these guys, Birds, Portchmouth, Russum?" And so we got asked if we wanted to be added to this competition. And as we were doing not a lot, we thought, yep, that's fine. So we came down and we had a look at this. And that was the existing house, a ruin. And so whilst it's enchanting on one side, it was less than enchanting on this side. It's quite a sad, well, it's quite an amazing story, actually. I don't know if it's sad. This was owned by a guy in the 1960s, and he got planning permission to extend it. And then he thought he would move to France to develop a life there. And he retained ownership of this, but just before he did that, he thought, well, I'll just take the roof off and store the tiles. And in about 1985, he came back, and it was in a sorry state. It was better than that, but it was in a sorry state. But he thought, I'm going to do this project now. And so he cut a bit of the earth out over here and put a kind of builder's yard there, and he moved a mobile home there. And started dismantling other bits of the house. And then he died. So he kind of spent his lifetime dismantling this house. And this was bought by a developer who got planning permission for a house built off the back of this. And when he got that planning permission, he then put it up for sale. And the client bought that house and had this competition. And we came to have a look at it. And this is the view that the client loves. It's a north view, but in a way it's very beautiful, because even though you aren't receiving the sunshine, the sun falls on that. I mean, it was a miserable day when we went there, as you can see, but it is actually quite resplendent when the sun shines on it. So this is very important to the client, that they enjoyed views up this valley. In fact, the client likes it so much that he's bought the field, up to the half distance up there. And I'll come on to what he's done with it. Oh, now that's interesting. Well, it's not interesting. It's not very helpful at all. Oh. This is a page where this must be a blip with this USB stick, that the image is gone, because you're only seeing bits of it. Is there any way we can get these images back, do you think? Or could I switch to my laptop? Would that be all right? Sorry about this, guys. I'm going to get my laptop out, because these are quite important sketches. I'll carry on talking while I'm doing this. I've got a white cable, which hopefully will do something.
No, that's HDMI.
That's all I've got.
If you can continue your slides, I can bring a VGA adapter.
Is it worth
5 minutes. I can just grab an adapter. Mac adapter. Then we back to the laptop.
Sorry, yeah, can we get this?
I can bring that up. No, it's not a problem.
Yeah, can we do that? Because I just...
Yeah, I got it, but downstairs the big one. Give me 5 minutes.
couple of minutes. His office is downstairs. It's
Could be what? I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it?
There you are, you can see that's the image that I want there. The trouble is, it's actually quite important to the description that I... It's this image here.
Yeah, you're missing like most
So
of it.
this is the story, this is how we, why we do what we're doing.
Then why that would do that on the...
I have had this kind of thing before, I don't know. I'm sorry about this.
It's alright, it'll be better.
I can't even kind of really blag it. Well, I could blag it,
You
but
can
it'd
talk
be...
about the bit that's below.
Yeah. Actually, what I will do is I'll use this. While I'm sorry, guys. While we're getting this sorted out, because I have got the images I want there on my laptop, but I can use this image to talk about the brief the client had. They're a young couple. I'd say they're kind of mid-30s, and he's obviously made a fair bit of money, and his wife is American, and she's an illustrator. They met when he was in New York, and he worked in a wine shop, and she worked in that wine shop. That's how they met. And he's really into wine, but serious wine, and drinking it and trading in it. But he actually made his money by being by doing what are called PFI, Private Finance Initiative, student hostels and hospitals and things. He wanted to move out of London. He found this bit of land that he thought was very beautiful. And his brief was very contradictory. He would say, I love my children, they're wonderful, I like to supervise them, I want to be away from them. My wife has a wonderful family, I love it when they come over, we have a wonderful time together, I want to be apart from them. So he set up, in a way, a lot of things that he wanted as kind of contradictions. And then they did drawings where they would say, we don't want that, we want that. We don't want this, we want this. So it was a kind of very rich and poetic brief. And this drawing here encapsulates part of the brief. The earlier drawings, which I hope I'll be able to show you, which are quite important to the project, talk about the relationship of the house to its site and how you approach the site and how you move through it. This begins to talk about the accommodation within the house. And so what we proposed was that we have a guest wing as an independent building, and that he would have his office in that guest wing, and that his office might be on the top. It might have this glass window so that he can get views across that landscape he loves. And that this would be the family wing here, where the kids' bedrooms and their bedroom would be, and that it would have the living area. And we proposed, because of these contradictions, that he liked the idea of separation as much as togetherness, that we then put a living area between these two wings, and that on top we put an open-air swimming pool. And that was a kind of metaphorical Atlantic, so that when his wife's parents came over, they could swim across and meet each other in the Atlantic. So you know, that was a kind of key idea for us. And what's interesting to note is they did allow their two children to view the various designs by people, and they all had a vote on which architect they would like to appoint. And it was the swimming pool that got us the gig with the children. And I'm not saying it would have got us the gig with the parents, but certainly with the children. How are we doing? Do we think we're...
Laptop. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. That's the image I want. Is there a reason why it's sunk?
Is you're going to full view. Full view. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can I use the clicky or do I have to use this?
I don't know if that works on Mac. Keyboard cannot be identified. Keyboard. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A big hand for the man. Thank you very much. Obviously, he's very drawn to this site, and I think whilst we kind of first thought, would anybody want to live here? We tried to kind of get a flavour for it, and I think we were. The notion of a country house in England is a rather. I spoke when I was talking about the pacemaker. Why would anybody even commission a house in the country these days? Does it happen? Actually, surprisingly, it does, and you know, after I have to eat my words, this has happened here. But I suppose, in terms of notion of home, one of the architects that we thought relevant in the English countryside is Edwin Lutyens, who, when I was a student, and probably much later, I used to deride as an architect. I thought he was utterly irrelevant, that he just did kind of trinket houses for the wealthy. And then in a kind of way, that's the position we find ourselves in, that we have the opportunity to do a trinket house for a wealthy person. And so perhaps we kind of are interested. Oh, I'm going to go back again, sorry. So this was the notion of arrival. Edwin Lutyens' work is very much to do with how do you arrive somewhere, and then how do you experience beyond it becomes a promenade through the house and into the great estate. And so this is the location where the site huts were for the guy who died. And so we're just accepting that, and we keep that, and we say, well, that's guest parking. But then we introduce this kind of looping drive that then arrives in a stone forecourt. And this is the stone forecourt, and we're proposing then that this is the point where you leave you're in the countryside and you leave the world of the car behind. And so the owner's cars are then set into a garage here through this wall, but it's buried under the hillside. And that then this becomes a loggia element that takes you towards the house. And what it does is it takes you then into another courtyard, which is framed by this ruined wall. And that ruined wall, it works as a romantic folly, but it also works in screening the new house from the neighbouring houses over here, so that it becomes a very, very private place. And of course affords the neighbours a kind of privacy as well. And so here you see the ruined wall from the other side, and we're proposing that we just plant it, and that it had a cellar area, and we proposed that that would have pools for carp in it. And then I spoke about the three elements of the house. This was the loggia, and on axis with the loggia, we have something that kind of begins to reflect the living element of the house. That this might be the living room here beyond, but that you don't go directly there. You sweep into the house at this point here, and there. So that is the point we're saying. Well, that's the point of entry. And that is the wing for the guests and his office, and then this is the family wing here, with the living area and swimming pool above. And so there you see the swimming pool, but the swimming pool then begins to signal the route through the house into the landscape because it's set into a hillside. And so this would be a kind of barbecue terrace here with the views to the valley that he really enjoys. And there, because he's kind of bought this large piece of land, we wanted to extend across a wildflower meadow to the very to the very end of the site. And so there we kind of proposed a tree house for the children. And so those were the drawings with which we got the gig. And these were the next series. We didn't plan it at all. We didn't say this is where the bathrooms are, this is where the bedrooms are. We didn't do anything. And so they came back and they said, well, we're very interested, but can you just show us where the bedrooms are and where the entrance is and stuff like that. So this was a very quick drawing to show the layout. And this was a very quick development in three-dimensional terms, where you see the wing here and the open-air swimming pool. And we carried on developing this for a few months. And we got to the stage where they started getting worried about having a swimming pool, an open-air swimming pool, which would kind of ice up in the winter, leaves would fall in it. And so then we thought about enclosing the swimming pool, but we kind of were very drawn to the idea of it being an open-air swimming pool. So we had this kind of concertina glass roof that would go over it. And then we got into the design of that a bit more, and then they began to realize that we were sinking a lot of money into this, and they began to feel that it was a bit like having a child that they could, or a pet, and they could never go on holiday because they'd always be worrying about this swimming pool. And so they said, regrettably, as much as they loved the swimming pool, as much as it helped us get the gig, that they would have to dispense with the swimming pool. And so we had to think about what we could do without a swimming pool. And I'd like to thank Will for the wine tonight. It's excellent. And this is an image of a foudre barrel. These are great big barrels where wine is held in these casks and then I guess bottled at some time. And because of their kind of passion for wine, we've kind of adopted this as the unifying element in the house. And so instead of having a swimming pool, we've introduced a great big wine barrel as the heart of the house. And that it connects from the entrance of the old house all the way through the house up into the landscape. And on each side of this wine barrel, we then have two more cylinders, and one of those is the route that takes you up to the upper terrace, from which you will also get access into the garden. And so this was a developed plan showing that there's this space that carves all the way through the house, from the old entry point, and carries on up into the landscape. This was the living room, this was their cinema room, and that's the kids' playroom, that's the wine cellar, that's the kitchen. There's the garage set into the hillside, here the loggia, the entry point here, and these are all, at this level, that's a kind of boot room, there's a kind of service entrance there, boot room and utility rooms, and that's the kitchen. So luckily, they stuck with us and went for the wine barrel. So here you see a development of it, the wine barrel, the loggia, the route up to the very roof of the house, where you get that stunning view. And these were the planning drawings. And I didn't really go into the planning scenario on Wood Lane, which was on Stealth House, But here we had a kind of much easier planning route, but it wasn't without a level of interest for us. As I say, we were kind of attached to this competition, and what we did with our scheme was we said, well, we'll keep the ruin, but we won't build off the ruin. And we'll use it as a screen for the new house and create this inner courtyard. I think the other architects, they either built off the ruin or they knocked it down entirely and probably put a white sugar cube in the middle of the green field. What was funny, when we were in the planning process on this, we had to go before the South Downs Design Review Committee. And the planners asked for their advice on this design. And they said they could not understand the scheme at all. And in their view, you should either build off the ruin or knock it down and build a new house. And what was interesting was that I spend most of my time moaning about planners, saying that they're just all peasants. And, but in this instance, the planning officer rejected the advice of the Design Review Committee and of the South Downs, and they gave planning consent for this. So we're kind of obviously very, very pleased. So it actually had a very smooth process. And we haven't got any kind of mad newspaper articles as yet, but we look forward to them. So here, this is where it's cut into the hillside. Here you see the family wing with the sitting area here, the cinema room here, the kids' bedrooms, and then this is the master bedroom suite. And that's the roof terrace there where you get the view, and here stairs down back into the landscape. So perhaps back to the technical issues, which are the real responsibility of this lecture. How is this house made? And what you're seeing there is a block of CLT. CLT is cross-laminated timber, and it was conceived, I think, in Austria, where they kind of they have a huge surplus of wood and don't know what to do with it. And some bright guy said, well, why don't we just turn it into giant plywood sheets? And so it has it as a store of a building material. And so these are about an inch thick, 25 millimeters to modern people. And this is about 5 inches thick, 125 millimeters, that sample there. But it might come in a panel that might be 6 meters long and 3 meters high. And we thought this would be a very good way to build this building quickly. I should say the client built it himself. He, not physically, he managed the construction. He took a year and a half off work and managed the construction of this building on site. And here you see the panelizing of the form of the building. And essentially these are cross-laminated panels. We design all of the apertures that you need. And this in the center, this is a different timber construction, but these are laminated ribs that you see here. And the contract was placed with a firm called Urban, and they undertook to deliver, the wood would be cut in Austria, it would be shipped to Switzerland, and it would be fabricated into these panels in Switzerland, and it would be delivered in 3 lorry loads over a 6-week span. Sorry, in 3 elements. There were quite a lot of lorries, but they would come every 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks they would deliver for this section, and then that section, and that section here. I mentioned that the site was chalk. The first thing that the client did was raise the site entirely. So here you can see where it's cut into the hillside. And where it's cut into the hillside, they've built these concrete retaining walls. And they're using concrete anyway because for the floor slab, so they've just merely turned that up the side to retain against the earth in these locations here. And there, where there's going to be the underground garage. And this is the arrival of the foudre, the barrel vaulted space. And you can see it arriving as these ribs here, which have a kind of knuckle joint up there. And they're just to confirm it's on the axis of the old ruin. And then this is a joint where it meets the ground. They're just kind of bolted together like Meccano. And so here, this is effectively the dining hall of the house. And I could probably get wood lane inside it. It's actually I couldn't in height terms, but certainly in width terms, I could probably get all. I don't know if I certainly the upper element of wood lane I could pop inside that. It's that big. Most people would be happy to live in a house out of that. I would be. And so this is the guest wing here with the service entrance. That beyond is where the sitting room is. And here you see the foudre, the barrel, with the cylindrical towers on either side. And here you see the CLT construction. So it really is like a pack of cards. It's just walls and then floor banged on top. It's very crude, in fact. And these are just 140 millimeters thick, and the walls are only 90 millimeters thick. And I mentioned the crudeness. Here you see the floor plate coming through. That's just whacked on top of the walls. This is where the stair is. We made the stairs out of this stuff as well. And it's just, metal angles and screws. It's actually very, very crude. It's not a beautiful wooden structure at all. This was beginning to look at the roof of this barrel vaulted space, and that was looking at, we determined that we wanted a copper cladding to it, and so this is looking at about how that might be achieved. And that copper cladding is then placed on batten work, and this is one of the lanterns into that space. So this is a wooden structure on top of the existing one. It's actually it's quite elaborate. That is all a ventilated void underneath. So there's kind of progress, and the house is rearing up. So this is what you have, and this is on the hillside opposite. You're seeing a couple of the existing buildings. There's the ruined wall, and there the new whatever it is beyond. It kind of is hard to believe it's a house, really. And this is the stone arrival court. And there the loggia. What we've done on this building here is we have this kind of slit window entirely through the building, so you see out to the hill, to the valley beyond, the meadow beyond. So that's the wooden loggia leading to the entrance. So actually, I'm not really seeing it there. The entrance is behind there. And then this is stepping outside into the garden, where you see the ruin and the new house rearing up behind it. And so this is the dining space, the heart of the plan between the two wings. And then here going to the furthest location of their land where the treehouse would be, and you're seeing the upper terrace here, and now we have a kind of staircase stepping down into the landscape. And this is the garage is beneath this roof here. So here the land's hollowed out here. That's now their barbecue area, and this opens up entirely. All these glass doors slide into the building alongside. So this is inside the entrance hall. So this is this cylinder, and it's a 3-story high circular void with balconies in it. And then this is the staircase that is in the other cylinder, and this goes on up to the roof. And so here it has timber stairs, and then they become glass stairs as you kind of ascend. So this is the dining area, and you can see it's aligned on the old house entrance, and the planting's beginning to take on the ruin, and hopefully that will just end up getting utterly engulfed with planting. And that's looking at the other way where the stone walls retain the soil. There's the dining table. And that's the kitchen. Here you're seeing all of the jointing between the ribs on the foudre. So it's all kind of like bolted together like Meccano. And then if we go upstairs, that's looking down into the living room. Sorry. Yeah, that's the living room there with its chimney, and that void there was the space you were looking down. I've got my slides out of sequence. So now we're at the first floor level, which bridges across the foyer, the foudre space, and that's the glass stair ascending. This is looking the other way to the entrance hall. And it's a kind of sinuous route that makes its way across the plan, and it hugs that elevation. So this is the entrance hall here with the coat cupboard. So this is the master bedroom suite. I think this slide's gone wrong as well. But, sorry, it's a bit truncated, but you're seeing that's the view from the master bedroom. And this is so that's the master bedroom at the top there, and this is their own bathroom suite, which has a bath in a bay window that projects out of the facade. And this is a view between the ribs of the foudre from the wine cellar. And this is the wine cellar. And again, this is a truncated photo, but there is a bottle of wine here that's worth £25,000. Defies belief. Sorry? Well, no, see, well, it's about that big. It is big. It's big. So that's it. This is the note on which I draw this to a conclusion, where I can raise a glass to you all.
Can you give us the overall dimensions of the development?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Can you say what the overall dimensions of the development are?
How big is it?
How big is the house?
Yeah.
It's about 650 square metres. And the garage is about 40 of those square metres, I think. It's really huge. I'm sorry? Is it going to be on it? No. Actually, this one could have been, because it kind of, the client's actually a really good manager, much better manager than me. I think, the procurement of my house has been a fiasco, whereas this has gone quite well. But that is the benefit of having money. I think if you've got money, you can actually make things happen quite smoothly.
But what was the overall budget, if that's not a secret?
The budget of this house. Actually, he would not ever discuss with us budget, because we agreed a fee based on £1.5 million, and I'm not saying it was for those reasons. He wanted to be the person who made the decisions about what he was going to have and what he considered to have value. So we do know that the completed cost of the building was about £2.5 million. So.